of 270 billion shillings. It has been a tough year financially, but of course some of us were caught in that trap way before the year presented its troubles. So we're going to get into it and talk about debt, how it can work for us, the pitfalls, and of course what you need to know when you're trying to borrow money from, whether it is digital platforms, banks, or whatever else other avenue that there is, and which one is better for you depending on what you need. So welcome to the show, lady and gent.
Morning, thank you.
Okay, now I'll start off with Mr. Gatumia. I'd like you to elaborate what debt is, how it can work for you, and of course some of the pitfalls we need to be watching out for.
All right. Essentially, thank you so much for having me on the show. Essentially, debt is borrowing money. If you need a certain amount of money, you're able to borrow, but there is a cost of that money. And essentially, the person lending you the money needs to be compensated for the time that you're going to use their money. And that compensation, that cost, is what we call interest. So they earn because they essentially could have invested elsewhere. They could have put that money, for instance, into a government bond or into a savings account and earned 4%.
Right.
So if they lend it to you, they need to make more back. That is what a loan is.
And it's not always a negative thing, right?
No. So at Centonomy, we always train and say that there is good debt and there is bad debt. A simple way, I know it's a little bit simplistic, but it's just a quick way to think about it.
Yes.
Good debt goes towards an asset, something that is of value, that increases in value and puts money in your pocket. Bad debt goes towards consumption. If I borrow from you to go and buy a loaf of bread, that bread, I'll eat it, yes, for today, but it will never put money in my pocket, and I have to figure out where I'm going to go and find the money to pay you back.
Okay.
So good debt, asset. Bad debt, consumption.
Okay, very clear right there. Now, Dr. Susan Gitao, I'd like you to come in on the element of bad debt, because there's certain triggers that lead us to that. Perhaps it could be trying to impress people and what have you. Could you explain the psychological triggers of bad debt?
Thank you so much. People borrow for different reasons, and I'm very happy for Mr. Waithaka just to tell people that there is good debt and bad debt. And from a psychological point of view, there are people who borrow genuinely. They need the money.
Yeah. Maybe
they need school fees for their children. They need maybe to complete a project. And it is genuine. We also have people that borrow because they are not contented with their status. I see Mr. Waithaka driving a Prado, and I'm like, no way, I should also have a very good car. And that has a lot to do with your self-esteem and even self-awareness. There are other people who learn from others. We have so many socialization agents in this country. Like, we want to look at our leaders and see what they are doing, and we want to copy that. I want to look at my friend, and I want to copy that. There are people, it's about where you grow up. Sometimes it's about the parents. If you found your parents borrowing huge monies and maybe making it, you might think you might also make it. And you also get into the debt problems. We also have people, it is a deep psychological disorder.
Okay.
They are obsessed about money. Like, when they don't have money, they are not okay.
Yeah.
So they have an obsessive compulsive disorder to borrowing so that they can have money. So you will find them with loans from all over. And those are the people, finally, and sad to say so, they find themselves so indebted, especially when there is a crisis like what we have with corona pandemic, and they just can't see their way out. And finally, they get very depressed. Or they'll run away, by the way. They will run away. Sometimes it could be an issue of pressure from family. There are people who will tell their husband, so-and-so has such a big car, has such a big house, the children, they go for holiday. Can you imagine borrowing to go for holiday?
Yeah.
You are going to eat and sleep there for a short while, and then you come back home, you have no money, and now you're paying because you borrowed to go for holiday. It has a lot to do with your psychological awareness. It has a lot to do with your social awareness, because people who are aware of themselves, they don't live other people's lives.
Yeah.
You live your own life. You actually do not care what other people are saying, because you're living within your means. And it's very sad, because right now in the country, again, when it comes to marketing by financial institutions, it is highly psychologically attractive.
Yes, right.
Such that if I open this phone of mine right now, I will actually get very many financial institutions who are willing, so willing to give me the money. But there is no financial education like the one Mr. Waithaka is bringing out, that I will give you this loan, but finally, this is what you're going to pay me. Otherwise, people would freak out.
Yeah.
And I don't know why in this country we do not care about one another. Because why would you want somebody's father or husband or wife take a loan and finally you know it will impact on their families? There are people who also borrow without really calculating, what do I have? Because if today I'm borrowing, I need to know maybe I have a security somewhere. If the worst comes to the worst, then I will actually trade off with that security.
Yes.
Most people do not know. You're just borrowing and you don't know tomorrow where you can get money to pay back. And we also have some people, especially in employment. Hey, in employment, let me tell you, especially when you join circles, the minute you clear with a loan, you're already thinking, when am I going to take another loan? Highly psychological.
Yeah.
Highly psychological.
Yeah.
But if I may, if you don't mind.
And yes, I'd like Mr. Gatumia come in. Yeah.
I was just saying, if we can be also very positive about this, the potential for such loans can be positive.
Yes,
the problem is that, especially we've talked about this, access to credit is a major thing, especially in the area of business if you're trying to grow, especially for micro enterprises if you're trying to grow. That access was never there before.
For sure.
But the problem is, as Dr. Getao said, is that we are not educated on this area. And so for 11 years as Autonomy, we've been trying to shout from the mountaintops. And you know, Mike, we've talked with him many times, telling people, understand the instrument before you take it. As Dr. Getawa said, if you misuse debt, I always give this example, debt is like fire. You see, fire is neither good nor bad.
Yes.
Fire can either cook your food, make your car drive, put energy for electricity. Those are all good things. But guess what? Fire can also burn down your house.
A good servant and a bad master.
Exactly. Listen, I'm telling you, debt can either build you or it can properly destroy you. So understanding it is the key.
Okay.
So go look for information about debt before you take it, because it can make a difference.
Now, Mr. Gatumia, let's talk about the realities that people are facing today, because when Dr. Gitau did talk about what is in our hands these days, the ads, they pop up, they're fashioned in a way to actually entice you. When you look at the people who are sponsored and to put out these ads, they put them in a way. Let's take an example of a couple recently that put up a billboard, and they made this sort of skit whereby it looks like the husband is giving the wife a car. And for many young people, this is very tempting, and they want to live that reality that seems to be beyond them. So some of them would actually go out and borrow money just to please people or post on social media. So how do people navigate these realities and keep their focus on the right intention or the right reasons for borrowing money that will actually go to assets as opposed to consumption? Because a car, after a few years, and I'm sure you can demonstrate this to us, it will depreciate and won't be worth what you have invested in it.
That's right. So I'll answer it in two ways. The first thing is, I think, you see, financial institutions are businesses. Their aim is to make profit. So they are doing their job in marketing, and that marketing is attractive.
Yes.
And so, business, they need to keep their jobs, and they need to be profitable, and they'll continue to do that. But for you, the consumer, just like you would with anything else, go and understand what that product is. Ask all the questions. One of the problems as Kenyans we have is we don't ask questions. We just go ahead, we sign documents without understanding. Ask, understand, and they will assist you. This is the one thing that I've found with financial institutions. They will give all the information if you only ask. So Kenyans, ask.
Yeah.
Let me show you now what you are asking about. Let me put it on the screen so we're not just talking about examples that are not real.
Yes,
so, yes. Daktari said that I'm driving a Prado. One day I wish I would do that. Let's say, I wish one day, Daktari, let's say I borrowed 3 million to buy that Prado.
Okay.
That is 3 million. Can you see it there on the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
If I borrow 3 million at 15%, because that's what they'll offer me at the bank,
right,
for 5 years to buy the Prado so that I can look like my neighbor down here. What happened? So I borrow 3 million, 15% for 5 years. That means every month I have to pay them 71,000 shillings for the right to drive the Prado, but I'm also still putting fuel, insurance, car wash, you know, I have guards, parking fees, all the costs are going into the car for 60 months, and I pay interest alone of 1.2 million.
Right.
So what does that mean? I have paid for this car that was worth 3 million, I have paid 3 million plus 1.2, 4.2 million shillings for this car. 5 years later, now I own it. That car now has depreciated. It went down from 3 million. Maybe after 5 years, it is now worth 1.5.
Right.
So I paid 4.2 million shillings for a car that now when I own it is worth 1.5 and it's still taking money out of my pocket.
Right.
This is the thing that people need to understand. So if I took this same 3 million and bought, for instance, how many Ubers is this? Something like 6 Ubers.
Yeah.
And each one of them was putting maybe 1,000, between 500 and 1,000 bob into my pocket every day.
Wow.
They will repay this loan. That's now asset. But I don't want to be seen driving an Uber because you know, people want to see the other one.
Yeah.
Very quickly, let me show you. If I took a mortgage, you know, somebody says 10 million for a house. Yes?
Yes.
And then they'll give you maybe better rates of 12%, maybe if you're lucky. And you take it for 20 years. Look at this. So 10 million for that house, 12% for 20 years.
Yes.
Look at the repayment. 110,000 per month for 240 months.
Wow.
And I will pay 16.4 million in interest alone over that 20-year period.
Wow.
Look at that.
Very interesting.
10 plus 16. The interest is even more than what the original amount was for this loan.
But Mr. Gachume, for that, what would be the alternative?
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Remember, we always said look for an asset. If you have bought, for instance, a house on loan and you are living in it, then it is not an asset because it's not putting money into your pocket.
For sure. Yeah, that is
true.
We
would suggest start by buying something small that you can afford and begin to build from there. Get one tenant in a small, don't buy in the place that you want to live, that leafy suburb. Buy in a smaller place where there's demand, then buy another one and another. And before you know it, over a period of time, those assets that you're buying will put enough money in your pocket for you to live in the leafy suburb.
Okay.
But the problem that we have is we want to live in the suburb first before we do the work that can support us there.
Okay. Dr. Gitahu, is there no case for faking it till you make it, given what social media is marketing to us?
Well, I do know there are people, I like to say they are lucky, by the way, that they can take loans and those loans work out for them. But I wouldn't like to encourage, especially the young people. You may find somebody like me at my age, maybe I have a few assets here and there, but I'm still very careful about my psychological wellness. I think people should worry more about their psychological wellness. Why do I put myself at crossroads?
Yes.
Why should I do that? Because very many people, when they take loans and they cannot repay, and we have seen this especially with corona pandemic, we have seen people who have gone down very quickly with serious health problems. We have seen people who have taken their own lives because they don't know how to get out. We have seen families break up. We have seen banks. And by the way, financial institutions are like nature. Nature does not forgive when you play with it. Even the financial institutions, they will come for your car, they will come for your house, they will auction it. And I like to say, even the people who are employed,
Right.
and you even have a secure job, always keep thinking about me first. How am I psychologically? Because if I am good up here, and this I say with all due respect,
Yes.
I am able to think. You know, when people talk about life skills, I like to say even creativity, innovations, and people have forgotten. Like their parents, I was telling this time, I'm very happy that some of you are able to see that your children have an extra skill. Let me tell you, even for people who are employed like me, full-time employment, if I don't think outside the box, these are the people you find when you retire. Now you can't even make it. You can't cope. You can't. You start thinking very early. And I like to say, even for the young people that are watching me, the money that comes into your life at that particular moment, if you don't know how to use 5,000 shillings,
Yes.
even when you get 5 million, 10 million, you will not be able to use that money. If you also live by the standards of other people, not your standards, or because you've been pushed, some people say, you know, I grew up in a lot of poverty, and so I have to live and flourish, you know, in richness. That's a lie.
Yes.
That tells you you're very empty in the inside. And I like what Mr. Waitheka has said. If I bought a car today, unless it's gonna give me money, then I don't need it. If I am living in a very big house, you know, very big house, 10 rooms, and those rooms are not actually bringing me anything,
Right.
then I had better give it away, and then, or just rent it away and get money from it. We do have a lot of thoughts about us in Kenya. Why do you have to go to Europe or you go to America and you find in their old age, they are relocating? Maybe where I would only have one bedroom just in case there is a guest. But here we want to have big houses. Who are we proving to something? I would like to say issues with money. We also need to know there's a relationship between you and your money. And I would want to say bad debt is poor relationship or negative relationship between you and your money.
Yes, for sure.
We do have people also who really want to show other people that I am here, I am present. And that is why social media should never be your educator. Social media should never be. Right now, before I came here on screen, of course, I was just in my natural state. But when I come here, I need to, it is okay, but I need to ask myself, what is the cost? So when you find people posting on social media, I don't want to post anything there that I look so gloomy, I look so ugly.
Yeah.
So we need to know social media is for sure and it's not bad, but who are you? We do have internal locus of evaluation.
Yes.
That can I listen to my inner core, my inner me? People don't do that. And I really wish I could sell to people a practice called mindfulness. All Kenyans, and especially the young people. Why do we have everything that you look at? China, China, China. Go to their country and you will tell me whether they live in big houses like we do. Or sometimes they drive big cars. Go to UK and you find there isn't that large disparity. What is amiss with us? Can we be Africans for the first time? Can we know what is our identity? Can we know what is our money? And look around again. Why do people even want to join politics? It is not to serve. It's
for
not
money.
a service for money.
Yes.
It's how much money can I grab and how much can I also secure that probably I have grabbed. So we need to have serious conversations in this nation.
And some, I hear, do actually borrow to get into the campaign, so it just turns into a whole vicious cycle. Now, Mr. Gatumia, when we talk about this, there's an element of the digital applications that are very affordable. Sometimes you have mass texting, you're actually texted and told you can borrow this. These are basically loan sharks and Shylocks, but in a new outfit. So some people would borrow from one app and then when it gets to time, because the time is usually short, then go and borrow from another one to pay the other, and then it just becomes all jumbled up. Could you speak to that and actually help maybe someone trapped in that sort of situation figure their way out, climb out of that hole, and then have a better mind frame when they're borrowing, a better plan next time?
Okay. I always like to look at the positive side first.
Yes.
That's the idea. The first thing is, if you're using the loan for what is right, then you're in a good place. I like to give the example of that, the Mama Mboga who borrows 2,000 in the morning. She goes to the market, buys vegetables for 2,000, comes to the estate near where we live, and she sells that the mbogas there for 3,000 bob. At the end of the day, she has made 1,000. She's able to repay that 2,000 back to the lending institution, and she has 1,000 for her family.
Right.
That is someone who is using it positively. But for the rest of us who take that 2,000 on a Friday evening because we didn't have enough to, fill up the tank or to buy the drink, that's where the problem comes up.
Yeah.
So now when it comes to these where you borrow from one to pay the other, you're in a cycle that can never be broken unless you decide to break it.
Yes.
So the first thing you must do is to stop taking loans. If you have been taking, just stop. Right now, stop. Use the energy that you've been using wherever you're spending to start thinking about how can I begin to repay? And the thing about it is, with loans, don't try and do everything at once. That's how now you also begin to finish yourself. There's a reason why loans have been divided into repayments.
Yeah.
That's because they want you to be able to get there. But repay as quickly as possible. Any extra amount that can come, put it in, because it reduces the amount of interest you're going to pay over time. One comment, though, about this fake it till you make it idea. It's a myth. Because what you want to do is look the part. No one will ever ask you, is that your car? Are those your clothes? If you really have to look the part, you can go and lease that Prado, which I don't have, and drive to the place where you're going to meet people. No one will ever ask you, is that your car or not?
Right.
But the truth of the matter is this, from my experience, most of the business deals that I have done, people didn't even know what car I showed up in. Because I was driven by an Uber, I stopped at their offices, and I walked up. The guy who is a decision maker doesn't even know where you live, what car you drove. So I don't know what this myth out there that people are wondering. It's a middle class myth.
So true.
Out there. People don't care what car you drive. They care what information you're bringing, your track record, the size of your business or your idea or your company. That's what they're interested in. Are you somebody I can invest in? And let me tell you what, those who know, they know. They're not bothered. If they can see that you're driving that big car, but your business doesn't look like it's doing well, there's an incongruence there.
Yeah.
And they might find out there's an issue. So I encourage you, this idea of fake it till you make, I understand. Feel like you're in that position. Act like you're in it, but don't borrow to look like you're in it. There's a difference.
Okay.
And there's a difference between buying a 200,000 shilling suit that doesn't fit and doesn't look good, and buying one that is 6,000, but you tailor it properly so you look good in it.
Okay.
No one will ever come and ask you how much is that suit. If you look good, you look good.
Yeah. For sure. We're going to take a short break. Dr. Gitau, I'll have your sentiments on that also. I know you have a point to drive home. So we're going to take a short break. Hold your thought. When we come back, we have more about the digital debt trap.
This is KTN News. Having affected the standards we often considered normal, COVID-19 has been declared a global pandemic. Nearly half of all schools in Kenya don't have basic hand washing facilities, affecting 19 million children. With COVID-19, this is even more concerning. It's up to us to make hand hygiene a priority. Every child deserves safe hands. Together with Davis & Shirtliff and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals alike to set up basic sanitation facilities around the country. As is our corporate responsibility, Individuals can also by identifying, nominating and submitting schools that are in dire need of sanitation and other basic facilities through nomination forms which will be accessible both online and in hard copy in the standard newspapers. Our plan is to enable every child to survive through this pandemic and get a chance to fulfill their dreams. So, let's do it for them. Let's do it for our children, our future. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email at standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davison Shirtliff and True Black and the Standard Group.
Next week on the Great Kenyan Bake Off.
Come on now. Please don't burn.
The bakers from Heat 2 are back in the tent for their own biscuit week.
And I'm hoping for the best.
The bakers struggle with some tacky technicals
Hard to please millionaires.
and produce some show-stopping creations. Tune in to find out whose biscuits will snap
Come on.
and whose cookies will crumble.
Beautiful. I love it.
I would like a whole bag of those.
The Great Kenyan Bake Off, brought to you by Unga Limited, inspiring a nation to bake. We are movies.
Y'all jokers must be crazy.
Can you hear me? We are music.
I do my hair toss, check my lips. Baby, how you feeling?
We are pop culture.
Jaja, your pretty Jaja. Jaja, your pretty Jaja. No.
But most importantly, we are young.
And the DRC marks 60 years of independence from Belgium, coming 15 months with the country.
Victims of torture. Here in Kenya, majority of the refugees and asylum seekers have fled war, conflict, and personal persecution.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. This is Morning Express. We're talking about digital debt, and a report last week indicated that Kenyans have borrowed to the tune of 270 billion shillings in Fuliza loans alone. So we're talking about that and figuring out the psychological aspects of it. And Dr. Gitau, you were on your way to telling us what your thoughts were on what had been said earlier on about faking it till you make it. But at the same time, we hear young people talk about tumia pesa ikuzoe, you know, a sort of impatience that surrounds the mentality about of money when it comes to young people. Could you speak to that, and of course advice on why we need to be patient and more strategic in our money plans?
Thank you so much. I guess the idea here is why.
Yes.
Why do I take that Fuliza? Because if you are a young person, you have no income at all. You are not working. Why do you have to Fuliza? Because that's what they say. Nime Fuliza.
Yes.
You want to send somebody some money and they tell you, kindly don't send to this number. Niko na Fuliza.
Yeah.
You know, and already the fact that you're telling me I cannot send you money in your mobile phone because you have Fuliza, it is already a problem. You are in debt. And I like people to know that patience pays. And there is something that I feel that our young people have lost that maybe some of us had. That patience and that realness. The ability and the desire to be me. Because even if I have grown up from a very disadvantaged background and I am dreaming big, it's not bad to dream big. It's not bad, by the way. We have the law of attraction. But that law of attraction should be strategic.
Yes.
Like, how am I going to make it? And as young as you are, I always say, young people are richer than us. Because when you're young, you have the energy. When you're young, you can try different things. But do not try with money that you do not have in the first place.
Yes.
If you have no employment, kindly think of how you can employ yourself if there is no employment for you. And I also look at people, the master's holders, like in this nation. If you're a master's holder in any field, sometimes even degree for people who really knew what they were going for in terms of careers, automatically you are a consultant in that field.
Yeah.
And how do you position yourself as a consultant? Because as a consultant, you can always do this during your free time. Like, I'm looking seriously for financial counselors to join a group of counselors that I run in this nation. Because we have marriage and family counselors, we have child, youth counselors, we need financial counselors. I know I do have people who come to me, but they don't come to me before they borrow. They come to me after they have borrowed and they're seriously indebted. And they have serious issues maybe in their family. And the families also are saying, so-and-so has a problem with money. And so when they come to us, we have in psychology what we call non-chemical addiction. And one of the non-chemical addictive behaviors is that addiction to borrowing.
Okay.
What is it that you're trying to fill in? Just like a drug addict, an alcoholic, or even a sex addict, what is that thing inside of you that you're trying to fill in? Such that it doesn't have to be filled in by money. So you need first and foremost to really understand yourself.
Yes.
Who am I?
Yes.
I think most people do not answer that question. Who am I? If I am a young person who is earning 10,000, then that is who I am.
Yes.
If I am a lecturer earning this amount of money, that is who I am. If I need something extra, then I need to come back to me and ask myself, what else can I do to boost my financial income? And I have liked what Mr. Waithaka has said. If you borrow money, by the way, do not wait to clear that loan. I think in my lifetime, I have never cleared a loan to the lender. I've never. I think the one I have done that is for help. I think only for help. Such that when you get money and you had taken a debt somewhere, go and lower the interest rate. And the banks are okay. It's not that they also want that money, you bring in and then they can lend it to somebody else.
For sure.
But totally, in this country, the financial literacy levels are very low. And I also like to ask the people who are in financial institutions, you always have that financial advisor there. Kindly
make use of them.
The stress in this nation. Think about the depression in this nation. Even the ones that say Fuliza. Some people have Fuliza to children. People who don't even have an ID because they have their parents' ID. What are we talking about? Isn't it child abuse?
For sure.
Isn't it illegal? Isn't it immoral? How can you know who is borrowing? So I think we need to think about systemic approach to this.
Okay.
And it has to begin from our homes. Parents, I want you to know, you have a right, you have the authority to be in charge of your child, to be in charge of your young adults, because they are the ones who really want to live like others. Let your children know it doesn't come so easily. Again, the life you live, do not cheat them. You know, there are children who really get scared that their property is being auctioned, that their father has run away because he's indebted. What have you done to your children?
Okay.
So I really say borrow smart.
Okay.
Borrow smart.
And speaking of borrowing smart, and Mr. Gatumia, could you speak to the importance of going through the hardships? Dr. Gitau talked about starting off with 10,000 shillings and then building on that. There are lessons that you cannot have if you're impatient and you try to jump the gun. Could you tell us about trusting the process and being patient enough to go through it?
That's right. I can speak to that. And now, if I may just add to what Dr. Gitau was saying just a moment ago, we also, as Kenyans, we must be sensitive. In this country, there are those people who are so disadvantaged who don't even have enough for food. And so, as a wider community, we have a responsibility. In this time of COVID-19, there are people who are suffering. If you can give, please give. If you can lend, please lend. If you can be able to support a family, please support. It is this is a time that we must come together as Kenyans, because there are those who, even if we told them to start something, they don't even have enough energy in their body because there's no food.
Yeah.
So if you can be able to support, please go to your church, to that local relief agency, the Red Cross, and support, because there are some who can't even lift themselves up.
Yes.
It's time for us to lift one another up.
Okay.
But now to respond to your question.
Quite briefly.
Very briefly, it's just to say this. You cannot run a marathon today. Running, by the way, is one of the easiest things you can do. But to run like Eliud Kipchoge, it takes time, it takes preparation, it takes energy. There is nothing that you can begin and just be an expert from day one. So start with what you know and what you understand. Don't overstretch yourself. And the funny thing is, this is happening across the world. Ever since we moved our classes at Autonomy online, we have seen that it's happening in Uganda, it's happening in Tanzania, it's happening across the world, where there is pressure. But this is a time for us to meet that pressure and be able to work from there.
Okay.
What Dr. Gitau was saying is that we need more financial literacy. Look for institutions around you. Buy those books that are there. Come to our website, centonomy.com, where we have free information. You need to get the information for yourself before you make those decisions.
Okay.
And then you will make a proper decision.
All right. Thank you very much. That is Mr. Waithaka Gatumia, the CEO of Centonomy, as well as Dr. Susan Gitau, a psychologist.